I just got hundreds of comics for absolutely free. And so I'm super excited, and I thought I'd tell you the story of how it happened because I think we can all learn some lessons from it. So, about a year ago, I came across someone selling their collection online, and I ended up buying a few books from them, and the one I was most excited about was Uncanny X-Men number 133, the first solo story of Wolverine, especially because when I got it in the mail, it ended up being a Mark Jewelers variant, which was super cool to have on a Wolverine key. Well, then a few months later, I ended up buying some more comics from this guy. But then recently, he emailed me to let me know that he was pretty much done selling his collection. He was kind of over it. You know, if you're selling comics, you can get burned out pretty quickly. And so he told me that he had sold enough to be happy with what he got for some of the books in his collection. But he still had over 13 long boxes of comics. And he was emailing me to let me know that if I wanted them, then I could have them for free, and all that he would ask is that I pay the shipping. And so, of course, I was super excited about that, and I emailed him back and I said, wow, thank you, this is awesome. And then he replied back, I'm going to read it so I make sure I get it right. He said, honestly, my pleasure. I've dealt with maybe 6 guys from the site, I think. You're hands down the nicest and the most communicative, and I really appreciate that. It just makes everything that much easier. Wow! That message meant more to me than even the free comics that I was getting ready to get. It felt really good to know that I had helped this guy have such a good experience with selling his comics. And obviously that kindness I showed in our interactions ended up paying off for me. And even though it wasn't nice to try to get some free comics, I mean, I had no idea that he was going to give me these free comics. Even though that's the case, I really do believe that you reap what you sow. And if you sow goodness, you sow kindness out into the world, you're going to reap goodness and kindness. And boy, was that the case in this scenario. So I thought I would share a couple of things that I always do to try to be a good buyer, especially when I'm buying from a private collector. You know, it's a little different if you're buying from an LCS or just on eBay where there isn't really a lot of connection between you and the person who owns these books. But when I'm buying from a private collector, I first of all make sure that I always show respect for their collection. You know, even if they collected things that I don't personally collect, I still compliment their collection and say, wow, this is a really cool book here, or this is a really neat one there. And I want to show that I appreciate all the hard work, all the time, all the money that they've invested in that collection. And it makes people feel really good to have that investment acknowledged. You know, all of us have stories of how we got these books and things that we saved up for. And it's hard when it's time to move on from our collection, like this gentleman did, to just have all of that effort forgotten. And so when a buyer comes along who doesn't forget that effort, who acknowledges it, it really means a lot to the seller. And so I always want to make sure that I do that. Of course, most of us have a real emotional connection to the comics that we've collected because of this effort and because of the stories. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've had a seller reach out to me and say how good it felt to them to know that their comics were going to a good home. You know, they have real attachment, and it's kind of like, obviously it's not like a kid, but it's something that's treasured. And these sellers, have to move on for different reasons. Maybe there's real bills they have to pay. They have to send their kids to college. I know I've encountered people like this. And the situation with this gentleman, he, I think, was just getting older, and it was just getting harder to take care of 13 long boxes of comics and to drag them around the home. And he just realized he needed to move on from them for that reason. but it really meant to something to him that the person who is going to take these comics was going to appreciate them. It's almost like we feel like we're guardians of these books, and we've worked so hard to preserve them and to care for them. And because of that, we want to pass the baton on to someone who is going to do the same. And this feeling is so strong in some sellers that they would rather sell their books for cheaper, or in this case, even just give them away. I mean, still, my mind is blown. Even just give them away to ensure that someone else is going to be a good guardian of those books. Now, of course, not every seller is that way. For some people, maybe many, it's just dollars and cents and they just want the most money. But there's a large portion of the collecting community that I believe really cares about who their comics go to. And of course, again, this is especially true of people who are selling their private collections. People who are dealers, obviously, they're in a whole different category. But if you're talking about people selling their own collections, who those books go to usually matters. Now, another thing that I make sure to do to try to be a good buyer is that when my books come to me, I send the seller a thank you. I say, wow, I really appreciate us being able to do business together, to be able to come to a deal on this, an agreement on this. Thanks for working with me, because usually, yeah, we deal with a private collector. There's some negotiation that's going on, and I thank them for again, meeting me usually halfway on a deal. And I just say how happy I am to have those books. And again, that makes the seller feel really good that, wow, I'm appreciated, I'm acknowledged. And one other thing that I do that makes sellers feel appreciated is really try, even in the in-between, to be fast with communication, not just let email sit there forever, and really, again, acknowledge their time and show appreciation for their time. And when you put these kinds of things into practice, I believe it leads to a lot of win-win deals where both buyer and seller come away satisfied. Of course, in our culture, we are all tempted to see the person across the bargaining table as our enemy. And if we're selling, we want to try to extract every penny that we can. And if we're buying, we want to save every penny that we can. But I don't think it has to be that way. Of course, once again, there's negotiation that goes on, there's give and take. But I believe that people can work together and compromise and find middle ground. Obviously not every deal. I'm not going to reach a deal on every comic that I inquire about, right? That's unrealistic. But more often than not, if buyer and seller are communicating, they're willing to listen to each other and show appreciation and acknowledgement for each other, you can come together and have a lot of awesome deals. And again, boy, was that the case with this seller. Best situation I've ever had. And so I've got a ton of new comics, and so I'm not going to show them all to you, but I'll show you the two that I am personally most excited about. First of all, I got a long box that are basically just X-Men. And when you have a lot of X-Men, of course, there's going to be a lot of keys in there. And I'm going to show you two of my favorite. First of all, X-Men number 35. A Silver Age X-Men that I got for free? Are you kidding me? I mean, this is awesome. And this is actually a key. It's the first appearance of Changeling, who was renamed more for the X-Men animated show. But what an awesome book. And of course, anytime you've got Spider-Man on the cover, that's pretty cool as well. And then my other favorite book was X-Men Annual number 14, which is the real, I know this is controversial, but I believe the real first appearance of Gambit, who was a character that I grew up on with the animated series as a kid. So I've always liked him. I have Uncanny X-Men 266, which is also considered to be his first appearance, and certainly has the best Gambit cover. I mean, that's the one I want to be the first appearance, but I personally think this one came out first, even though there was like weird things with the shipping times. But he's named in here. He's in many panels. To me, it's the first appearance. Either way, I'm glad to have both of those books in my collection. Now, tell me in the comments below, are there other things that you do in order to have win-win deals? I would always appreciate any advice. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so now. Like, comment, thank you.